This video is sponsored by Card Kingdom. Use the links in the description to visit their store. In Magic, a vanilla creature is one that has no abilities. Typically, this kind of creature isn't very good. This is because most creatures have abilities that make them more powerful. Frequently, for a vanilla creature to be good, it has to have a really good stat line and/or a really important creature type. Because we recently visited the plane of Muraganda in Aetherdrift, a plane with a mechanical focus on exactly this kind of creature, I thought it would be interesting to take a look at Magic's best vanilla creatures. This actually isn't the first time I've done a top 10 on vanilla creatures, and normally I would do an update top 10 when that's the case, but I did that other video so long ago, way back in 2016, that I hadn't really figured out the best way to do research for these top 10s. Plus the audio and visuals in that old video are terrible, so in this one I'm starting from scratch. In all, there are 354 vanilla creatures in Magic, and only 17 of them have top 8'd a major event. And in this video, we'll look at the 10 that have left the biggest impact on competitive Magic the Gathering. Before we get to today's list, let me tell you about today's special sponsor, Into the AM. They've been nice enough to sponsor many videos over the years, and I'm glad because it means I get to share their great products with you. They are an apparel company that is probably best known for their graphic tees, like the one I'm wearing now, but they're also launching a new product line today. Stretch denim jeans. These new jeans are incredibly soft and comfortable and are made of a premium 4-way stretch fabric that gives them a great feel. If you're interested in getting some Into the AM stretch denim jeans or any of the other great stuff in their store, use my link in the description to get 10% off. Alright, let's get back to the video. Before we get started, here's a quick reminder on how I rank cards in these videos. A first tier top 8 is worth 2 points. This includes events like Pro Tours, and a second tier top 8 is worth 1 point. This includes events like regional championships. At number 10, it's Aegis Turtle. For 1 blue mana, it's a 0/5 with no abilities. While it's not the most exciting stat line, that is really high toughness for only 1 mana. It has the highest toughness of any 1 mana creature in the history of Magic, with Death Shadow and Phyrexian Dreadnought the only exceptions, and obviously they take a bunch of setup. The turtle is in standard right now, and it's taking advantage of that by making appearances in the sideboard of one specific deck, Talented Otters. This deck is a combo deck that looks to get Enduring Vitality in play and untap your stuff a bunch with Valley Floodcaller so that you can combo off with all that mana, and Aegis Turtle is a useful sideboard card against decks using Screaming Nemesis, a super heavily played card in the format that has a very strong ability anytime it gets damaged, since it does damage equal to that damage to any target. If it hits a player, it even turns off life gain for the rest of the game. The turtle is tech against that style of deck because it can block the Nemesis all day without the trigger, and having 1-drops is pretty strong when you're playing Enduring Vitality anyway, since it makes it more likely that you have some mana ready to go the turn it comes down. Aegis Turtle is still putting up top 8s in standard right now, and it's likely to move higher on the list. At number 9, it's Kalonian Tusker, which has an identical score to Aegis Turtle, but it achieved higher average finishes in its 6 second-tier top 8s, so I gave it the higher spot. It's 2 green mana for a 3/3 with no abilities. 2 mana 3/3s with upside have become increasingly common in recent years, but getting a 2 mana 3/3 with no downside at all was a pretty big deal back in 2013. Such a big deal that the Tusker was good enough to see significant play in Standard, where it was used in mono green and Gruul aggro decks. It also has a single modern top 8 in mono green aggro, but it hasn't put up any top 8 since 2014, so it's likely to be passed by Aegis Turtle in the near future. At number 8, it's Woolly Thoctar, a 5/4 with no abilities that cost a red, a green, and a white. While this creature is a little bit hard to cast, its stat line was pretty much unheard of back in 2008. Unsurprisingly, it was played in Naya aggro decks in Standard and Extended. Those formats had great mana thanks to Tri-lands, Fetch Lands, and Ancient Ziggurat, so the Thoctar was pretty consistently coming down on at least turn 3, but because of Noble Hierarch, it could even come down a turn earlier. Woolly Thoctar doesn't have any top 8 since 2012 though. At number 7, it's Yargle and Multani. Certainly the card on the list with the weirdest stat line. For 3 generic, 2 black, and a green, it's a legendary 18/6 with no abilities. Generally, that's not a creature you want to be playing, since it does nothing but offer a huge body that isn't even that good at attacking or blocking. However, it is the creature with the highest power in the game, and that alone makes it useful in the right deck. In Modern, it's played alongside Kragenwick Cremator, which can let you do 18 to your opponent when it enters, provided you discard Yargle and Multani with its trigger. and 18 is usually enough to kill someone in Modern because of all the fetch and shock lands. These decks aren't one-dimensional though, they're also Reanimator decks, and while Yargle and Multani isn't the ideal thing to bring back, that'd be something like Emrakul, the deck can bring back Yargle and Multani with Goryo's Vengeance, and if your opponent is defenseless when you do that, there's a good chance they're dead. While it probably sounds like a meme deck, Kragenwick Cremator Reanimator deck saw some significant success in 2023 and 2024, but so far in 2025, Yargle and Multani doesn't have any top 8s. At number 6, it's Watchwolf, yet another creature on this list who had what was an eye-popping stat line when it was originally printed. It's 1 green and a white for a 3/3 with no abilities. Its printing helped spawn a new wave of zoo decks in block standard and extended. These were Naya aggro decks where many of the deck's creatures are things you could find in the zoo, like wolves, elephants, and apes. However, Watchwolf doesn't have any top 8 since 2007, and at this point we get 3/3s with upside for this mana, so it's highly unlikely it ever moves higher on the list. At number 5, it's Fresh Volunteers. Certainly the least efficient creature on the list, the Volunteers are simply a 2/2 with no abilities for 1 generic and a white. However, the Volunteers type line is what led to it seeing lots of play. It's a Rebel, and Rebel decks were incredibly strong in both block and standard. Most Rebels have an activated ability that allow them to recruit other Rebels directly to the battlefield, a powerful effect that gives that kind of deck some serious card advantage, and that means the Volunteers are tutorable. Rebel decks were so good that the best of them, Lyn Civi Defiant Hero, ended up getting banned in Block Constructed. Fresh Volunteers doesn't have any top 8 since 2001. At number 4, it's Leatherback Baloth. For 3 green mana, it's a 4/5 with no abilities. A card with this kind of casting cost does require a significant commitment to 1 color in your mana base, and back in 2010, that commitment was worth it since this was such an overstated creature, so it's no surprise that its points over the years have all come in mono green decks. When it was in Standard, the presence of both Arbor and Llanowar Elves made it commonplace for this to come down on turn 2, and it even managed 1 point in Modern, but it doesn't have any top 8s in any format since 2014. At number 3, it's Isamaru, Hound of Konda. For 1 white mana, it's a legendary 2/2. While technically vanilla, the very fact Isamaru is legendary is something of a downside, since you can't have more than 1 copy of it in play at a time. That matters on a 1-drop more than it does at other places on your curve, since you really don't want to end up with multiple Isamarus in your opening hand. Still, it's got a great stat line, even by today's standards, and that was even more the case back in Kamigawa block. It was played in white aggro decks in block standard and extended, including the aforementioned zoo decks. It's even seen play in Legacy, including in aggro decks back in 2005, and it's actually enjoyed a bit of a renaissance of late as a result of the printing of a new Kamigawa dog, Yoshimaru Ever Faithful, a 1-drop that loves legendary permanents and has helped spawn legendary aggro decks in the format. Isamaru has a good shot at adding to its score in the future, and if it does, it'll be the number 2 card on this list very soon. For now though, the number 2 slot is held by 3 cards: Elite Vanguard, Expedition Envoy, and Savannah Lions. All 3 have an identical mana cost of 1 white mana and an identical stat line of 2/1. All 3 of them would have been on the list if I gave each of them their own spot, but that wouldn't have been very interesting, with Savannah Lions coming in at number 2, the Vanguard at number 4, and the Envoy at number 9. In addition to Savannah Lions having the most points of the 3, it's also the original 1 mana 2/1, since it was originally printed in Alpha. For the first decade of Magic history, it was seen as the most efficient 1-drop in the game, and it definitely was. Other 1 mana 2/1s with no downside were completely unfathomable. Of course, all of that has changed, as evidenced by functional reprints of Savannah Lions and several 1 mana 2/1s with upside. Savannah Lions was part of Magic's original zoo deck back in the 1990s, and various reprints allowed it to see lots of play over the years in other aggro decks. Meanwhile, Elite Vanguard more or less filled the same slot when it was legal in Standard, as did the Envoy. Of the 3, the Envoy's creature type played the largest role in its seeing play, since it's both a human and an ally. Humans were a big deck in Standard when it was legal in the format, and most allies have abilities that benefit other allies, or trigger off of them. None of these 3 1 mana 2/1s have seen play in quite some time. This despite the fact that the Lions are actually legal in Standard right now as a result of a reprint in Foundations, but the 1 mana 2/1 slot has been power crept pretty hard. Standard right now has 3 1 mana 2/1s with upside, and they aren't even all seeing regular play. So Savannah Lions probably isn't adding to its score despite that reprint, and Isamaru is likely to pass it in the future. And at number 1, by a very wide margin, it's Memnite. For 0 mana, it's a 1/1 artifact creature. A 1/1, even at 0 mana, isn't always worth a card. That typing effectively gives Memnite other abilities because there are so many powerful ways to take advantage of artifacts. For example, in Standard it was played in Tempered Steel decks. These decks also prominently featured the Metalcraft mechanic, and having a 0 mana artifact could help you get there. It's done the most work in Modern though, where it's been played in that format's affinity decks, which are loaded up with artifact payoffs, probably the most notably Arcbound Ravager, who can really take advantage of having a free artifact body lying around. More recently in Modern, it's been played in Pure Steel Paladin decks, where it can help you get Metalcraft going to equip your Colossal Hammer for free. Memnite is still seeing play in Modern right now, and it's likely to continue to add to its score, making it very difficult to imagine any future vanilla creature will ever take its spot on this list. So those are Magic's most powerful vanilla creatures. They may not have abilities, but they're still pretty strong. If you're looking to build a Muruganda Petroglyphs deck, check out the description where you can find a direct Card Kingdom link for each card that appeared in the video. If you want to make sure you catch future videos, don't forget to subscribe. And if you want to catch up on more than 800 other MTG Top 10s, you should see a playlist on your screen shortly. Thanks for watching.